You're not learning, you're memorizing. That's why you keep watching videos, reading books, and still forgetting everything a week later. You feel smart in the moment, but when it's time to use what you learned, your mind goes blank. I lived in that loop for years until I discovered the Feynman Technique, the exact method Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman used to learn faster than everyone else. Today, I'm breaking it down step by step so you can finally learn faster than 99.7% of people. Here's what nobody tells you about being smart. Richard Feynman won a Nobel Prize figuring out quantum physics, the kind of mind-bending stuff that should be impossible to explain, but he explained it like he was talking to his neighbor. Simple drawings, normal words, zero ego. Most experts hide behind jargon because it makes them feel important. Feynman did the opposite. He had one brutal rule for himself. If he couldn't make someone with zero background understand it, he didn't actually know it yet. That's terrifying honesty most people avoid. And here's the part that changed how I learn everything. This wasn't just his teaching trick. This was how he learned. He'd work through ideas until he could explain them naturally, not by memorizing definitions, but by actually getting it. No scripts, no fancy terms he barely understood himself. My friend, real mastery isn't about sounding smart in meetings. It's about making the complex feel obvious. When you can break something down so clearly that anyone gets it, that's when you know you've actually learned it. Everything else is just performance. If you're still using complicated language to explain simple things, you're fooling yourself more than anyone else. Before I break down how the Feynman technique actually works, you need to understand why your current learning methods are keeping you stuck in a cycle of fake progress. Let me tell you something nobody wants to admit. The study techniques we all learned are designed for one thing: cramming information long enough to pass a test, then forgetting it. Highlighting, rereading, flashcards. 2 weeks later, it's gone. The problem? You're confusing recognition with understanding. You see something enough times, scroll past it, nod along, and your brain says, "Yeah, I got this," but you don't. Recognition is fake mastery. Real understanding comes when you can use it in situations you've never seen before, when you can teach it without stumbling over your words, when you spot how it connects to everything else you know, when it actually works when you need it. The Feynman technique destroys this illusion because you can't fake explaining something out loud. There's no jargon to hide behind, no definitions you memorized 5 minutes ago. You either actually understand it, or the gaps show up immediately and brutally. That uncomfortable feeling when you can't explain something you thought you knew, that's not failure. That's your brain finally being honest with you. Here's what shifted everything for me. This works for literally any subject. Business frameworks, programming concepts, psychology principles, financial literacy, the process never changes. I've used it to understand startup economics, negotiation strategies, even philosophical ideas that seemed abstract. It works because it forces you to confront what you actually don't know. Most people never do this. They live comfortably in the illusion of understanding, never testing if their knowledge actually holds up under pressure. There's something raw about trying to explain something you thought you had figured out and realizing mid-sentence that you're completely lost. That confidence just evaporates. I'm really curious. Have you ever tried to explain something you thought you understood, only to realize mid-sentence you had no idea what you were talking about? That moment when the confidence just evaporates? Drop a comment below with what topic exposed your gaps. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear before they waste more time pretending to learn. Let me break down the 4 simple steps that expose every gap in your understanding. No elaborate systems, no fancy apps, just 4 steps that will reveal every gap in your understanding immediately. Let me show you how this works using an example most people think they understand: compound interest. Step 1, pick your topic and write it down. Grab actual paper, not your phone, not some app, physical paper. Write your topic at the top. Let's say compound interest. I know what you're thinking. This is too basic to matter. That's exactly why you'll skip it and stay confused. Something happens when you physically write something down. Your brain stops half listening and actually commits. Most people want to jump straight into learning because writing feels like a waste of time, but that's the first mistake. Writing it down is your contract with yourself. It forces your brain to stop multitasking and lock in. I thought I understood compound interest. Money grows over time, exponential whatever, seemed simple. Then someone asked me how $1,000 becomes $76,000 at 7% over 40 years. I mumbled something about exponential growth and realized I couldn't explain the actual mechanics. That experience showed me something important. What we're most sure of often hides what we still don't see. True understanding means turning complex ideas into something simple and clear. The real proof is explaining it to someone new and making it make sense. Step 2. Teach it like you're explaining to a friend. This is where most people fail. They try to sound intelligent instead of being clear. Your job isn't to impress anyone. Your job is to explain this like you're answering a random text from your friend at midnight. Speak simply and honestly. Don't try to sound impressive. If your friend knows nothing about what you're explaining, walk them through it from the very beginning and fill in every gap along the way. I figured this out trying to explain gravity to my younger cousin. I couldn't say, gravity is space-time curvature caused by mass energy. That means nothing to a kid, so I tried something different. Imagine rolling marbles on a stretched bedsheet. Put a bowling ball in the middle. It creates a dip, right? Now when you roll marbles near it, they curve toward the bowling ball. That's basically how gravity works. He got it immediately. And honestly, that's when I actually understood it too. If you can't explain something to someone with zero background knowledge, you don't understand it yet. The test isn't whether you can use impressive terms. The test is whether the other person says, "Oh, that makes sense," instead of just nodding politely while totally lost. Real comprehension means stripping away the complexity until you hit the simple truth underneath. When you genuinely understand something, you can build it back up from basic principles instead of just repeating sophisticated explanations you've memorized. Most people mistake familiarity with jargon for actual understanding, but true mastery shows when you can teach it to someone with zero background. The moment you need fancy language to explain something, you're probably hiding gaps in your own knowledge. Before I show you how to find those knowledge gaps, I want to mention something. I just launched memberships here, and honestly, it's for anyone who's serious about actually learning, not just consuming. As a member, you get priority access when you comment with questions. Plus, you can request breakdowns of specific topics you're stuck on. If you want that level of support while you're applying this technique, check out the join button. Would love to see you there. Step 3. Find your knowledge gaps. Here's the uncomfortable part. As you explain, you're going to hit walls, places where you realize you have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you can't explain why compound interest makes such a huge difference over long periods, or you're fuzzy on how it actually calculates day by day. Your brain will panic. It'll want to move on quickly or make excuses. Don't let it. These gaps aren't failures. They're your map showing you exactly what to learn next. Wait, I don't actually know this moment is valuable. That's your roadmap. Go back to your sources, articles, videos, courses, whatever, and fill in those specific gaps. Work through examples, find different explanations, keep digging until you actually understand that piece. Then come back and try explaining again. You'll usually find that fixing one gap reveals another you didn't notice before. That's normal. That's the technique working. Those uncomfortable moments where you discover the gaps, that's not failure. That's exactly when real learning starts happening. Step 4. Simplify using analogies. My friend, here's where most people fail. They keep the complicated words because it makes them feel smart. Stop it. You're not writing to impress. You're writing to teach. Go through your writing and erase anything that sounds like you're trying too hard. If you use words that your mom would question, simplify them. Real clarity beats smart-sounding nonsense every time. I used to say, gravity curves space-time, and wonder why people glazed over. Now I say, gravity is like standing on a tilted floor. You naturally slide toward the heavy stuff. Same concept, actually understood. Here's the real measure. If someone can't explain it back to you in a few minutes, you haven't made it clear enough. Understanding only counts when it can be passed on easily. The real skill isn't making simple things sound complex. Any idiot can do that. The real skill is taking something complex and making it so clear that people wonder why they ever thought it was hard. Clarity isn't dumbing down. Clarity is respect. Every fancy word you cut makes your explanation stronger, not weaker. When you choose understanding over sounding impressive, you create knowledge that actually sticks in people's heads instead of sliding right out. Now here's the part that actually transforms how you think. It's built around one simple question that children ask naturally, but adults have learned to avoid. This question is what takes you from understanding what happens to understanding why it happens. Here's what separates surface knowledge from deep understanding. Most people stop too early. They think explaining simply just means using smaller words. But real understanding means you can handle the question that separates curious kids from self-conscious adults. Why? Adults stop asking why because it feels embarrassing. Kids don't care. They'll keep asking until they hit the fundamental truth. Think about compound interest. When you tell someone money grows faster over time and they ask why, you explain that banks pay you for letting them use your money, and when that interest stays in your account, it earns more too. It's simple logic, not magic. Consider marketing funnels. You describe them as a way to turn strangers into customers, and someone wonders why not sell right away. That's when you explain it's about trust. People buy only when they believe, and belief builds at its own pace. Those why questions push you past surface mechanics into actual principles. They force you to explain human behavior, business logic, the real forces at work. Most people think they understand something when they can describe what happens, but you don't really get it until you can explain why it happens. That's the difference between shallow knowledge and deep understanding. It's like knowing a recipe versus understanding how cooking actually works. When someone asks, "Why does that happen?" and you can't answer without technical jargon, that's your brain telling you something's still missing. Here's the thing, my friend. This technique isn't just for academic concepts. I've applied it to everything. Business models I needed to understand, technical systems I was building, even interpersonal skills like negotiation. The principle stays the same. If you can't explain it simply, you don't really know it. When learning to code, focus less on memorizing and more on understanding how things work. Loops exist to save effort, not repeat yourself. Functions keep code clean and fixable. Once you can explain those reasons, you've started thinking like a real developer. For business, repeating buzzwords is easy. What matters is knowing why some models succeed while others collapse, and why certain advantages endure while others fade fast. When you can explain those patterns with relatable examples, that's real understanding. For money, most people know they should save and invest. Few can explain why. Try explaining to your friend why buying index funds usually beats picking stocks. If you can make them understand the logic without using terms like diversification or market efficiency, you've learned something useful. The pattern is always the same. Move from knowing what to understanding why. That's where actual knowledge lives. Surface facts are just starting points. They show you the rules, but not the game. Once you understand the deeper logic, you can predict outcomes in situations you've never seen before. Many people get stuck memorizing because it feels productive, but true mastery begins when you can explain an idea naturally, without notes or scripts. Once you understand the core principles, you stop relying on examples. You start creating your own answers. Here's what surprised me. This doesn't just help you understand individual concepts better, it accelerates how you learn everything. When you constantly practice breaking things down, you start recognizing patterns everywhere. You realize gravity isn't just about objects falling, it's why rivers flow, why planets orbit, why your legs feel heavy after a long day. The same principle shapes everything from ocean currents to galaxy formation. This separates people who excel from people who just collect random information. When you grasp underlying patterns, you can spot them in new contexts and apply what you already know. Instead of restarting from zero every time, you're building on a foundation of connected principles. Most people learn in isolated compartments. They study marketing separately from finance, psychology separately from business, never connecting them. But human behavior drives all of it. When you see the common threads, everything clicks faster. Understanding why people make decisions gives you a massive advantage over just memorizing separate techniques for each domain. Before you start, let me save you from the mistakes that kill most people's progress. Mistake number 1, avoiding discomfort. When you hit a knowledge gap, your brain wants to patch it quickly and move on. Don't. Those gaps are gold. Sit with not knowing. That's where learning happens. Mistake number 2, leaning on jargon. Technical terms make you feel smart, but they're a crutch. If you can't explain compound interest without saying exponential growth or compounding periods, you don't actually get it yet. Cut the big words. Mistake number 3, staying theoretical. Concepts without concrete examples are useless. If you can't give a real-world example of how something works, you're still surface level. Always use specific situations. Mistake number 4, keeping it internal. The technique works on paper, but it's explosive when you explain to real people. Their confused expressions and unexpected questions will expose gaps you never knew existed. Your friend asking, "Why would anyone do that?" might be the question that finally makes it click. The discomfort when someone doesn't understand your explanation isn't failure, it's feedback. That awkward moment when they look confused is giving you valuable information about where your thinking breaks down. When someone doesn't get what you're explaining, it's usually showing where your own understanding is thin. Great teachers earn that skill by failing to explain things many times until they learn exactly where others struggle and how to make it click. Here's how to implement this instead of just nodding along and forgetting about it. Pick one thing you're currently struggling with. Just one, not 5. Trying to solve everything at once spreads your focus so thin that nothing truly changes. One clear effort beats scattered attempts every time. Block out actual time, at least 30 minutes. Deep understanding doesn't happen in quick bursts. If you're squeezing it in between distractions, you're only pretending to learn. Find someone to listen to your explanation. Your roommate, a friend, whoever. Bonus if they know nothing about the topic. They'll ask questions that expose your blind spots. Make this your automatic response to learning anything new. Don't just consume information about marketing or finance or whatever. Immediately try explaining it to someone else. Document what you learned. Not because writing is magical, but because you'll be amazed at how much clearer your thinking becomes when you track your progress. Do this consistently, and you don't just get better at learning, you get better at thinking, period. The clarity you develop here doesn't stay contained. It transforms how you think about everything. When you practice breaking complex ideas into simple explanations, that clarity spreads to everything. Your decision-making sharpens because you can cut through noise and see what actually matters. Your communication improves because you can share ideas without burying people in terminology. In conversations, people actually understand your point instead of just waiting to talk. When teaching, people leave transformed instead of just having memorized something. In disagreements, you can address the actual issue instead of talking past each other. When you can explain things simply, you stop lying to yourself about what you know. You stop hiding behind complexity and start building real understanding. That's when ideas stick and spread instead of just sounding clever temporarily. Let's be honest, most people aren't actually learning, they're just hoarding information. This technique works because it forces you to stop pretending. When you can't explain something without fancy words, you've discovered you don't actually understand it yet. That uncomfortable realization is where learning begins. But knowing about this technique changes nothing. You have to actually use it. Pick something you're struggling with right now. Get paper. Start explaining it like you're teaching someone curious. Feel the discomfort when you discover your gaps. Fill those gaps. Repeat. The goal isn't becoming the smartest person around. The goal is stopping the self-deception about what you actually understand versus what you've just memorized. In a world where most people mistake information for understanding, real knowledge is your competitive edge. If you found this video helpful, this next video right here will take you even further. Your choice, your life. Start now.